Naithan George is officially a member of Syracuse, and what a massive addition it is for Adrian Autry.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We are always free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And ladies and gentlemen, today is a good day to be a Syracuse Orange fan. In case you missed it earlier this afternoon, On Three's Joe Tipton reported that Syracuse basketball has landed Georgia Tech transfer point guard Naithan George. There is a instant reaction mini podcast here on this channel. You can check it out when you are done watching or listening to this podcast, because this podcast is going to be a full one. And it's also going to be a little bit more thorough than an instant reaction where we're all just like, holy crap, what a move for Syracuse basketball. We're going to talk about why this is a massive move, the improvement on Syracuse's roster now, and also talk about the starting lineup, which is really starting to form for this team next season. But before we get to everything, this episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from. Need one right now? Grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. Stock up today and stay energized. Naithan George, welcome to Syracuse. He is 6'3", 180 pounds, and he's got 2 years of eligibility left. More on that in just a moment. His last season at Georgia Tech, he averaged 12.3 points a game. That's pretty good. And 6.5 assists per game, which led the ACC. I would also say that's pretty good, right? And Syracuse, on top of that, they had to beat out some tough competition, if that makes you feel any better. They beat out North Carolina and Oklahoma, who also got Zoom calls with Naithan George. It was reported yesterday that Syracuse and those two schools had Zoom calls. I'm glad that Syracuse beat those schools out. Finally, they actually beat out those schools, right? Let's talk about why this is a massive move. And I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you to everyone involved in getting Naithan George from Georgia Tech to Syracuse. More specifically, thank you, General Manager Alex Klein, and thank you, Head Coach Adrian Autry. We asked for a big-time transfer portal addition, and you all certainly delivered, because Naithan George, I read you the numbers, he is one of the top point guards in the transfer portal, and Syracuse basketball desperately needed a starting point guard for next year. On top of that, if it makes you feel better, he did it in the ACC. He did it at Georgia Tech. This is someone who is proven within the conference. And hey, he's got multiple years of eligibility left. I understand that in this day and age, everyone's on a one-year deal. Okay, everyone plays a year, and they all will have the option to enter the transfer portal. Now, Naithan George with 2 years, he might not play both 2 years at Syracuse. It's possible. But if all goes according to plan, Syracuse basketball is much better next season. They improve and they get to the NCAA tournament. Adrian Autry sticks around for year 4 as a result. Well, then maybe Nate George sticks around for that second year with Syracuse basketball. Of course, if all goes according to plan, that's the upside you get in getting someone with multiple years of eligibility remaining. So thank you to everyone involved here. And this is a time where I think we can all feel a lot more optimistic about Syracuse basketball, because boy, did we all need it. We all needed to feel more optimistic. And this is one of those moves that makes you feel that way. Now, look, it doesn't guarantee anything. They still got to win. They still got to make the NCAA tournament. But this is a move that gets Syracuse one step closer to achieving that goal. Another reason why this is such a massive move here, who else? I said on a mini podcast earlier today, when I was simply just doing a mini podcast reacting to the Zoom call with Nate George, if not Nate George, then who? And what's implied at the end of that question is, if not Nate George, then who? That's good. Who was Syracuse actually going to get at point guard if they missed out on Naithan George? Because they did not get Dedon Thomas from UNLV. He went to LSU. Nick Boyd, who might have been on Syracuse's radar from San Diego State, good player. Well, he's got a crystal ball to Wisconsin. So Syracuse wasn't going to land him. Quadir Copeland was never actually a real option. I mean, that bridge had been burned for a long time. He was never coming back to Syracuse. And anyway, he transferred to NC State, so it looks like we're going to see him next year. So the only available good option point guard for Syracuse was Naithan George. And I'm not trying to sit here and say that, hey, Quadir Copeland, Nick Boyd, Dedon Thomas, those guys are all better than Nate George. What I'm simply trying to tell you is that when you're looking at the good point guards that are available, tell me who is actually available that was a realistic target other than Naithan George. That was it. If they missed on Naithan George, what? Who else? Pray that USC's Desmond Claude enters the portal because his mother played at Syracuse basketball? Maybe. Maybe that's what they would have done. Maybe they would have done the thing that you're not allowed to do, but everyone knows that everyone's doing, which is tampering. But genuinely, if they had missed out on Naithan George at point guard, what were they going to do? They might have had to move JJ Starling to the 1 full time. Not the most ideal thing you can do in the world. I'd rather get an elite point guard, which they did. Or you can keep JJ at the 2, keep Nate Kingz at the 3 from Oregon State, and you could start a true freshman in Luke Fennell. You want to do that? So this was a massive move because it was a big portal pickup that makes people feel a little bit more confident in Syracuse basketball again. It gets them closer to the NCAA tournament goal. And also, if they didn't get him, I don't know what they would have done. I genuinely don't know what else they would have done at the point guard spot. They might have been stuck getting second, third, fourth tier options that really are not starters in the ACC, and we could have deja vu all over again. Luckily, that's not the case with Naithan George from Georgia Tech coming to Syracuse. Coming up here on this podcast, we'll talk about how Naithan George makes Syracuse better and also how he plays. So that's coming up next on Locked On Syracuse. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. You can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day, so protecting your loved ones doesn't have to break the bank. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Price is subject to underwriting and health questions. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first-inning runs, PrizePicks keeps every game exciting. And setting up a lineup, it's really easy. It takes less than 60 seconds, and when you win, your payout is quick, safe, and secure. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. And folks, if you enjoy this podcast, if you are excited that Syracuse basketball landed. Nate George from Georgia Tech. Hit that subscribe button. Not only is it completely free, it allows the channel to grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. And folks, I want to hear from you in the comments section below. How much better is Syracuse basketball today with Nate George now on the roster? Comment your thoughts in the comment section below, because we're going to talk about how Naithan George improves Syracuse basketball significantly. Okay? This improvement cannot be understated. The Orange are going from a year ago having Jaquan Carlos as their primary starting point guard to Naithan George, a player who averaged 12 points and over 6.5 assists per game, which led the ACC. That is a dramatic improvement. Enough said. As far as Nate George as a player and how he's going to improve, aside from him being just a really big upgrade on Jaquan Carlos, I have never subscribed to the belief that Syracuse needed a quote-unquote true point guard. They needed a point guard, but it did not have to be a true point guard. That being said, I wasn't against adding a true point guard, so don't mistake me for that. I certainly would take a true point guard as long as that true point guard was actually good. Well, in this case, Nate George is a true point guard who is actually good. And to just further my point about not necessarily needing a true point guard, I mean, a couple years ago, you had JJ Starling and Judah Mintz. Judah Mintz was the point guard. That was fine. That worked. They were two isolation type guys that would drive to the basket, but they won a lot of games. They at least won more than the following year when they had a quote unquote true point guard. So that was my whole point with that. Nate George is a true point guard. He is an elite passer, particularly in the pick and roll. Obviously, he led the ACC in assists at 6.5 a game. And he had a 34% assist rate last year, which is very high. So Nate George is someone who is going to get all of his teammates involved. Now, let's also talk about Nate George, the scorer, because last season he averaged over 12 points a game. And the year before that, his true freshman year, he was at about 10 points per game. So this is a point guard who not only can pass, he can score. Different from he can shoot, but he can score. Okay? He's not an elite three-point shooter, but he's getting better at three-point shooting. Let's look at the numbers from 2024 to 2025 here. 2024, he shot 31.4% from the three-point line on about 3.5 attempts per game. Not great. In 2025, this past season, he shot 33.9% from the three-point line on a little over 5 attempts per game. So he took more threes in 2025, almost actually 2 more threes essentially from the previous year, and made them at a more than 2% higher clip. So he got better this past season from downtown. And to further my point, in the final 10 games of the season in 2025, Nate George shot nearly 39% from three-point range, which is very high, certainly very capable in the ACC to hit a three. And he did it on over 5 attempts per game in those 10 games. So he was getting better down the stretch at three-point shooting. Now, I'm not going to sit here and predict that Nate George is going to be one of the top three-point shooters in the conference next year, or even that he's going to raise it to a much higher number, let's say 38, 39%. But what I will tell you is that I will not be surprised if Nate George's three-point percentage in 2025-26 goes up. Let's call it another 1.5%, so 35-ish percent, give or take. That would be pretty good. That's another couple of threes made in a season, really. It's not really that much to move it by a couple of percentage points. So I think he's going to be a little bit better from downtown next year, but he's not an elite three-point shooter. As far as how he scores, there are really two main ways that Naithan George will score. 46% of his field goals made will come as the ball screen ball handler, meaning he gets a screen and he decides to take it himself and score. Okay, so that's his number one way of scoring. His other way of scoring is 17% of the time his field goals will come with him as a spot-up shooter. That means Nate George is out on the wing, he gets the ball, he shoots, and he scores, right? So overall, Nate George improved Syracuse basketball significantly. He's an elite passer, led the conference in assists last year, the ACC. He scores over 12 points a game, an improving three-point shooter, still not necessarily elite, but improving. And you know he's good to score 10 to 15 points a game. That is so much better than what Syracuse basketball had a year ago. As far as his defense, he is certainly better than Jaquan Carlos, but we're going to talk about his defense and the starting lineup next here on Locked On Syracuse. Daylight savings snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. And folks, I've been needing a lot of 5-Hour Energy lately with all these transfer portal pickups recently. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in around a golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. With longer days, I love getting outside for a hike or a run. Tropical Burst is my go-to for a quick boost. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. You need one now? Grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Let's discuss the starting lineup for Syracuse basketball next season. Now that Naithan George is with Syracuse as their point guard. And I want to hear from you in the comments section below. What do you think is the starting five for Syracuse next year on opening night? Comment your thoughts in the comments section below. Let's start off with point guard. I think this is fairly obvious, okay? I don't know. Who's it going to be? It's going to be Naithan George. Naithan George is Syracuse's starting point guard. You can lock that in right now. Shooting guard. Again, you can just lock it in. It's going to be JJ Starling. With the addition of Naithan George, we can eliminate the possibility that Starling would be moved to full-time point guard. Remember, I talked about that during the Nate Kingz podcast when discussing the rotation, that, hey, if they decide to keep Nate Kingz at shooting guard and he's in the starting lineup, well, that means they're probably moving JJ Starling to the one full-time. Well, you get Naithan George. You didn't strike out on a point guard. In fact, you got a really good one in Nate George. So JJ Starling will remain the starting shooting guard for Syracuse. Your small forward, I wouldn't lock it in, but it's probably Oregon State transfer Nate Kingz. Probably. What can Nate Kingz do? What can he do? He can shoot. That's what Nate Kingz can do, and he'll probably be in the starting lineup next year. Your power forward, pretty simple. Donnie Freeman, and you're also going to have Sadiq White, a borderline 5-star power forward coming off the bench. So that should be a pretty solid tandem right there. There is a scenario, though, where Sadiq White would be in the starting lineup, and that's they moved Donnie Freeman to the 5, and they have Sadiq White as the starting 4. However, I have a sneaky feeling they're going to add another center in the transfer portal that can start. Speaking of center, who knows? It could be UCLA center William Kyle, who they just got in the transfer portal. Maybe. But that move should not prevent Syracuse from going after another center in the transfer portal. I mean, Quincy Ballard, Deshaun Jackson, those guys would be nice. Just saying. Those would be great moves for Syracuse basketball at the center spot. So let's just assume, though, that 3 are locks in the starting lineup. Naithan George is 1, JJ Starling is 2, and you know that Donnie Freeman will be in the starting lineup. And let's also assume that as of right now, Nate Kingz is going to be in the starting lineup. Okay? The transfer from Oregon State. Let's talk about the pro of that 4 and the con of that 4. The pro, that unit could score. Naithan George, JJ Starling, Nate Kingz, Donnie Freeman. If you add up their season averages from a year ago in points per game, it comes out to 55.3 among just those 4 players. If Syracuse next year gets 55 points a game from those 4 players, they are going to be one of the better offenses in the ACC. Because Nate George, he can score and he can distribute. JJ Starling, he can go to the basket and he can score. Not really good from 3-point range. Please do not take threes next year, JJ Starling, please. Nate Kingz, what can he do? He can shoot. 45% from 3 last year. I think 12 points a game last year, too, at Oregon State, if I round up. Donnie Freeman, good mid-range scorer, getting better from beyond the arc. He was 33% from 3-point range. Ideally, he's more mid-range and inside focused, but he does have the ability to hit an occasional 3. So overall, that 4 of Nate George, JJ Starling, Nate Kingz, Donnie Freeman, the big pro of that 4 is they can score a lot. That's a good thing. You want to have more points than the other team at the end of every basketball game, and one way to do that is to simply score more points. How about that? That's your expert analysis here on Locked On Syracuse for you all. The con, well, it's their defense. That's the main concern I have right now for this group of 4, because none of these guys are really that good at defense, to be completely honest with you all. Let's talk about their Evan Maya defensive ratings from a year ago. And for those that don't understand the Evan Maya system, it's an analytical tool. It's publicly free. It's out there. Just search up Evan Maya statistics and you'll find it on Google. But it's a great analytical tool to measure a player's impact on the court for their team. It's not a perfect tool, but it is very useful, especially when you're trying to determine, is someone a good defender or is someone not a good defender? Because really the box score does not tell the whole story like it could with the player on offense. You know, you could look at their points per game. You could look at their field goal percentage. You look at someone's steals per game and blocks per game, doesn't necessarily match up with being a good defender. Steph Curry gets a lot of steals. He's an awful defender, right? So in the case of this Evan Maya tool, just to further explain it, the higher number, the better. And in the case of defense, if there were 9 average Division I players on the floor and the 10th player was, let's say, Naithan George, his team would be better or worse X points per 100 possessions with him on the floor. That's what it means. So let's get into the ratings. Nate George got a 0.46 last year. Now, that's actually better than Jaquan Carlos, so he's also an improvement defensively on Jaquan Carlos. JJ Starling got a 0.12. Nate Kingz at Oregon State last year was a 0.42. And Donnie Freeman last year got a 0.38. For context, the last time Syracuse basketball made the NCAA tournament was in 2021. They were 9th in the ACC in defense, points allowed per game at 70.1. And they had 5 players. Keep in mind, they were 9th in the ACC in points allowed per game, and they had 5 players on the roster that had an Evan Maya defensive grade that was higher than all 4 of those players I just mentioned. And that was for a middle-of-the-road defense in the ACC, actually bottom half in the ACC that year. So I'm concerned about this unit getting stops. In fact, Kadori Richmond on that team, by the way, the one that got away, 2.13 defensive rating, which led the team last year. Syracuse was awful defensively, second worst in the conference. Nobody got a 1. Nobody graded out as a 1. That's not good, right? So I don't project this group of 4 to be good on defense. They're going to score, but they're going to also give it up on the defensive end. And I'm also not really giving the benefit of the doubt to Syracuse basketball. It's not like they have Kelvin Sampson, the coach from Houston, coaching them. So I'm a little bit worried about the defense. Sorry, I got to call it like I see it. It's a great move. It improves them significantly. But going forward, and we're going to talk about this more on the podcast, they got to get some guys that can defend. They have to. I would absolutely love KJ Lewis from Arizona, who they've reportedly reached out to. I don't think it's going to happen because they got Nate Kingz and they play the same position. But man, that would be a good one to get, right? Someone that can really defend, get a center that can really defend. The guys that I mentioned, like Quincy Bauer, Deshaun Jackson from Iowa State. That would be outstanding moves for Syracuse because that's really where they have to improve now. They need defense, okay? So what's next? Well, I kind of just teased it all out there for you. We'll talk about the remaining moves for Syracuse in order for them to really be an NCAA tournament team. That's coming up later on next week. There will not be a podcast tomorrow. The podcast will resume on Sunday. I want to hear from you in the comments section below. Your thoughts on Nate George committing to Syracuse and how much better Syracuse is today than they were last year, yesterday, whatever metric you want to use. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball podcast with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. And folks, we have reached the Final Four. So be the most informed college basketball fan with these 4 teams left. You can find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse so this channel can grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. And I will see you all again soon.